5 minutes. Good morning and welcome. My name is William Harris, and I am President and CEO here at Space Center Houston. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to everyone watching this opening program of the 32nd Annual Association of Space Explorers on websites for ASC 2019, Space Center Houston, Rice University, and NASA TV. So we are live broadcasting. I have one minor piece of housekeeping. If all of you have your cell phones or mobile phones, could you please turn them off or put them on silent? Otherwise, it'll get picked up on the broadcast and sent all over the world. 2019 marks the 50th anniversary of one of humanity's greatest achievements, the first time humans from Earth stepped foot on another celestial body. To your right, suspended from the ceiling, is the engineering model LTA-8 lunar lander that was used to prepare for the Apollo 9 and 11 missions. Just imagine a vehicle identical to this one landed on the moon and returned astronauts to the Apollo capsules for the journey home to Earth. This achievement inspired people around the world, and imagine many of you, to pursue careers as astronauts and cosmonauts and to work in the space industry. You've all continued this important work of advancing knowledge that benefits humanity and understanding of our planet and beyond. Space Center Houston is a dynamic learning destination with more than 400 space artifacts, hands-on interactive exhibits to advance science learning that explore the past, present, and future of space exploration. As the official visitor center for NASA Johnson Space Center, we also focus on the astronaut experience and research that enables humans to go beyond our atmosphere. While here, I hope that you can explore the exhibit behind me, where you can prepare and test your readiness to travel to Mars, as well as touch a piece of an asteroid from the red planet. In collaboration with Johnson Space Center, we've also completely restored the historic Apollo Mission Operations Control Room, where we transport you back to 1969 to experience the Apollo 11 mission as it actually happened. So I think you're in for an exciting experience this week here in Houston. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is the 12th Director of NASA Johnson Space Center, Mark Geyer. Mike oversees a workforce of more than 10,000 civil servant and contract employees dedicated to advancing the human experience in space exploration. His many achievements include serving as chair of the International Space Station Mission Management Team, manager of the ISS Program Integration Office, and NASA lead negotiator with Russia on space station requirements, plans, and strategies, among many other achievements. Please join me in providing a warm welcome to Mark Geyer.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here today. Welcome again to Houston and to Space Center Houston, which is in the shadow of the Johnson Space Center. I know we're going to have a lot of great events over at JSC as well this week. What I wanted to do, I just have one slide, and I wanted to talk about the explorers that are exploring space today. These are the 6 folks we have on Space Station: Drew, Alexander, Luca, Oleg, Jessica, and Christina. A great set of astronauts, very heroic folks, and also a great example of the international partnership that we continue to employ in space. They are just the latest in almost 19 and counting continuous years in space for explorers on ISS. Young people today about to enter college have never lived a day where there wasn't a human in space. And that is really in testament to what NASA and our international partners have done on the International Space Station. You might know that we are in the midst of 11 EVAs in a few short weeks. We've done 2, we've got another one on Wednesday, where Drew and Jessica will go outside working on the batteries of the ISS. And then as part of that also, there's a Russian EVA. At Johnson Space Center, human explorers are at the core of what we do, and today there is a more diverse set of missions than we have ever had in our history. Along with operating Space Station 24/7, soon we're going to have 2 companies launching astronauts from the United States. A bit over a year from now, we'll be flying our first human-rated lunar-capable system to the moon, the first time we've done that since 1972. And we are starting the planning and building of the lunar outpost and landing systems. So our job at Johnson Space Center is to enable these missions, enhance the human experience in space, and help build an economy in space that benefits the world, and we're well on our way. So I really want to salute this organization. The work you do is spelled out in your mission statement, where you apply the unique perspective of your experience as astronauts and cosmonauts to promote the global benefits of space science, exploration, and international cooperation. to educate and inspire future generations and to foster better stewardship of the home planet. These are really very admirable goals. I also want to mention an experience that I've had. I've been to Baikonur several times to watch our astronauts, our International Space Station astronauts launch from Kazakhstan. And I've had the honor of being invited out to the pad as the crew comes off the bus and walks toward the rocket. It's an incredible experience. There's about 25 people there. They're really the bosses, the managers, the engineering and operations experts, and invited guests. The crew comes off the bus, you escort them, a lot of smiles, a lot of photographs, but then there's a moment there where only 3 people get on the stairs. Separate those folks from the rest of us. And we know only a year ago that even a system that flies hundreds of times can have issues, right? It is a dangerous business. And I want to salute the many of you that have risked your lives for the furtherment of human exploration and the benefits it brings to our life on Earth. So again, I thank you for coming to Houston. I hope you enjoy your time in Houston and the Johnson Space Center. Thank you.
Well, we realize that for many of you, this may be the first time you've been to Houston, or you've not been here for many years. And so we thought we would show you just a brief video about our city and where we currently stand. Let's run the video.
Before it was the 4th largest economy in America. Before it took the world to the moon. Before it pioneered the first artificial heart transplant, built the first domed stadium, or earned its reputation as the energy capital of the world, Houston was a city of spirit. A city that wouldn't take no for an answer. A city that responded to, "It can't be done," with, "Sure it can, just watch." From the moment the Allen brothers set foot on the banks of the Buffalo Bayou, Houston has been looking forward, moving ahead, making history, building a dynamic and harmonious city where, if you work hard, dreams will come true, where ambition will get you everywhere, where you can be confident that the best days are still ahead. From the bold vision of 2 entrepreneurial brothers grew the Houston we know today. A vibrant city of diverse culture and neighborhoods, where residents enjoy world-class dining, entertainment, sports, visual and performing arts. A city of innovators and visionaries. A city where advancements in technology are helping to build the industries that will shape our future. An international city where companies from around the globe find it easy to conduct business. Houston takes its rightful place as a center for world trade. Houston is a city with dreams even bigger than Texas. A city with dreams as big as the world. Discover the unlimited opportunities awaiting you in Houston. The city with no limits.
Thank you. Again, we are so excited to have all of you here, and we hope that you have a phenomenal week experiencing Houston, Texas. The city is undergoing a major growth spurt and transformation, so we have lots of fun things in store for you this week. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce ASE member, past president, and chair of this year's Congress, Bonnie Dunbar. Bonnie is a distinguished astronaut who's been on 5 missions and continues to serve by heading up major research happening at Texas A&M University. So please join me in welcoming Bonnie Dunbar.
Well, dear friends, colleagues, and guests, thank you for joining us at this 32nd Congress of the Association of Space Explorers. We've got what we hope is an exciting week in front of us, but it's done by a team, and especially the community here that's helping to support us. And I'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge that team as well as the sponsors who helped make it happen. So first of all, the Vice Chair of this Congress, Dick Richards. The Chair of the Companion Program, Lois Richards. Our Executive Director, Andy Turnage. And the members of the community, the Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership, Space Houston, the center of our history here, William Harris and his entire team, the Ellington Airport system that helped to welcome you here, Arturo Machuca, the University of Houston system, the Lone Star Flight Museum, the NASA Johnson Space Center, Rice University, Griffin Communications, the Hilton Hotels, Tech Trans International that's providing our interpretation support, and the NASA Alumni League. Our sponsors really make this happen. The presenting sponsors, the Texas A&M University System. We have the Saudi Space Commission, Aramco, YPO, Concho, Rice Baker Institute of Public Policy, Jacobs Engineering, Lockheed Martin, Collins Aerospace, Tellurian, the Boeing Company, KBR, and Rice Space Institute itself. So thank you to all of the committee, and I'm sure I missed some of you, but let's give a round of applause to all the people that made this happen. We also have some distinguished guests here from the Consular Corps. Would all of the Consular Corps please stand and be recognized? I know you're out there. We're very delighted to have you here this morning. We understand that Houston has over 90 members of the Consular Corps, and they're very active in the Houston community. So with that, I'd like to introduce the president of the host region for this 32nd Congress, Steve Oswald.
So on behalf of the USA region and its board and membership, welcome to Houston, Texas. I've got to tell you, when I first moved here in 1984, Houston was not in the list of the top 20 places that I thought I wanted to live. It's kind of flat, hot and humid in the summertime. And then we got here, and like a lot of you, I started over time falling in love with the place. And if you look at the addresses of a lot of the folks that are here, it says Houston, Texas, because they decided to never leave, along with a lot of our children and grandchildren. My 3 kids are here. None of them work in the space business. They're in finance and oil and gas, healthcare, but they stayed because they love the people here. They love the environment, and there really is something special about the people of Texas. If you don't believe me, just ask a native Texan what's so special about Texas, and you better have 15 or 20 minutes for the answer. They are very proud of their heritage, and deservedly so, and we're very fortunate to be here. Bonnie and her crew, Lois Richards for the Companions, have put together an agenda that will allow you to get a better sense of the heritage and the frontier spirit of this community that has welcomed us with open arms. So I look forward to the week. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to mention 2 folks. They're actually the only 2 folks that I know who go by 2 letters separated by a hyphen. So the first one is J.D. Bartow. He's on the XCOM, and he organized all of the technical sessions. So if you like the technical sessions as we go through the week, JD is responsible for that. And he does more dog work for the XCOM than all of the other members combined. So thank you, JD, for all the work that you did. I also like to thank Andy Turnage and Liz and the staff, professional staff of ASE, and of course Bonnie and her entire team, because it's just been fantastic to be able to sit back and watch most of this from afar as Bonnie and Dick and the crew have gotten it ready. So the other guy, it's my privilege to introduce my other two letters separated by a hyphen buddy. Mike L.A. is known to all of us. He's one of a subset of us who's flown both shuttle and Soyuz, 3 flights on shuttle, 1 on Soyuz, 7 months on ISS as the commander. Speaks 4 languages. He's still working on English, but I'm betting that he can get through this. So, Mike, come on up.
Buenos dias, dobro utra, and good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to echo Steve's words and thank Bonnie and her team, Andy Turnage and his team, and of course all the sponsors, and welcome all of you to the 32nd Planetary Congress of the Association of Space Explorers. We have quite an interesting week planned. I'm going to first read a piece of correspondence that came in from the Office of the Vice President. Washington, D.C., dated today. I am delighted to send my warmest greetings to the 32nd Association of Space Explorers Planetary Congress and welcome all of the astronauts, cosmonauts, and space experts gathered from across the United States and around the world to Space City. Selected as host city of the 4th Planetary Congress convened in the United States, Houston holds an extraordinary place in America's storied history of space exploration. Today, Houston serves as an epicenter for training and education as part of President Donald Trump's renewed commitment to American leadership in space. For more than half a century, the Johnson Space Center has been at the forefront of America's journey to the stars, home to NASA's Astronaut Corps and the site of Mission Control Center that has guided every American crewed space expedition. In this 50th anniversary year of Apollo 11's lunar landing, we honor astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins for their courage, and we reflect with renewed inspiration on those immortal words that they left on the lunar surface: "We came in peace for all mankind." I'm grateful for the Association of Space Explorers' enthusiasm to push the boundaries of space exploration and encourage students to pursue the all-important fields of science, technology, engineering, and math education. To each of you gathered for the 32nd Planetary Congress, thank you for your pioneering spirit to break old barriers, to set new records, and to inspire the next generation to rise to even greater heights and take another giant leap for mankind. I send my best wishes for a memorable week. Sincerely, Michael R. Pence, Vice President of the United States. Now would be a good time to clap. Next, I'd like to introduce some remarks that are made by NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, which will appear behind me now.
Welcome to the 32nd Planetary Congress of the Association of Space Explorers. We are honored that you have chosen to meet in Houston, Texas, the city synonymous with human spaceflight. I extend special greetings to the more than 100 astronauts and cosmonauts assembled here from around the globe. Your example of courage and commitment to the exploration of space inspires us to continue our efforts to reach into the great beyond. This conference's theme, Celebrating Apollo, Inspiring the Future, captures the spirit and determination of our forthcoming missions. NASA is fervently working to land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024. We will then construct life-supporting architecture at the moon by 2028 to permit us to acquire the skills and knowledge to live on another world. But we can't do it alone. The Apollo-Soyuz project, the Shuttle Mir project, and the International Space Station are all examples of how much our nations can achieve together. You are living examples of the benefits of those international collaborations. NASA invites your nations to again partner with us in the next chapter of human space exploration. What we accomplish on the moon through Artemis will enable us to take humanity's next giant leap forward to Mars. I applaud your mission to inspire youth as you reach out to schools and universities during your Congress. They are the Artemis generation. We need their bright young minds to help us overcome the challenges and dangers of space. Our 21st century space exploration missions are fast approaching. I look forward to hearing your ideas on how we should proceed into the future. Our collaborative effort, courage, and determination in missions past demonstrate there is no problem too great or challenge too difficult. I am confident that the Artemis program will likewise be successful because of what we do together. I send my very best wishes for a successful Congress. Thank you.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the association, we are a nonprofit professional and educational association comprised exclusively of astronauts, cosmonauts, and commercial space travelers that have made at least one orbit of the Earth. We have over 400 members from 38 countries. We have been in existence since 1985. And I'm often asked about my space flights, how was it to live in such a small, confined environment? How did you manage the interpersonal relationships and get along with each other? And especially, how did you do that with people from different countries, different cultures, different languages? And I think if you ask that question to the folks in the first few rows today, they would look at you maybe quizzically and shrug, and they would say, you know, you don't understand. We're not just colleagues, we're not just friends, we're family. And as a family, we get together, it could have been last year, it could have been 5 or even 10 years ago, and it's warm embraces and backslaps and stories that continue right where they left off. And this legacy puts us in the midst of brothers and sisters, not brothers and sisters in arms, but rather in peace, in science, in technology, in research, and in conveying to the next generation messages of inspiration, in concern about protecting our planet because we've all seen its fragility from space, and in promoting the benefits of international cooperation in science and space, human space exploration. So the association was founded in 1985 by a small group of astronauts and cosmonauts and international flyers in Cernay, France. And I'd like to take a moment to ask those founding members that are in attendance to stand and be recognized. As Administrator Bridenstine mentioned, as did Mark Geyer, we've got 6 folks upstairs on the International Space Station, and I'd like to now introduce a video message from them as well as 3 others who were there at the time welcoming us here to the Congress.
In July, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the first lunar landing, the mission to send a crew to the moon and return them safely to the Earth.
It was a huge achievement, not only for NASA, but as well for all humankind.
The Apollo program and the thousands of people who helped get us to the moon shaped a future for humans in space.
For 50 years, we've built upon the human and technical achievements of the Apollo program, and we continue to do so here on board the ISS.
We're gaining the knowledge and experience needed not only to return to the moon, but also to carry us beyond to Mars and other deep space destinations.
We, as astronauts and cosmonauts, were inspired and enabled by the pioneers of space travel, many of whom are with you in Houston today.
As we stand on the shoulders of those giants, we hope that our work on board the International Space Station will likewise inspire and enable the next generation.
Future explorers will carry on the challenging but rewarding task of expanding the human presence in the solar system.
From the crews of Expedition 60 and 61 on board the ISS, we wish you all the best for a very successful 32nd Planetary Congress of the Association of Space Explorers.
So our theme today is celebrating Apollo and inspiring the future. A little over 50 years ago, we heard the words, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." First word, Houston. So it's not surprising that we're here. It's a city that has a deep, rich history with human space exploration, and one that will continue on for many decades to come. A little while later, that same gentleman said, one small step for a man and a giant leap for mankind. Keep in mind that this happened a little more than 8 years after President John F. Kennedy first made public mention of this idea of going back to the moon, or going to the moon and returning man safely, and before any of the following things had even been developed: a rocket to get there, a lander to get to the moon, anyone doing a spacewalk, or anybody having done a rendezvous in space. These are all technologies that were just on paper at the time. And he said, we're going to do that because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. So this week, we look to celebrate those energies and skills. We're going to start with a retrospective and progressively move forward to what is required for the further exploration of the moon and beyond. We have 8 technical sessions starting today, the impact of Apollo today and tomorrow, followed by medical challenges of flight beyond low Earth orbit for humans, a very nice in-person account of the Apollo experience as told by not only the astronauts that were there, but also the teams on the ground. Forward to the Moon, which is about the spacecraft and launch vehicles, some of which you see mocked up to your left. That will hopefully take us there within the next 5 years. The next 50 years, what technologies and programs are feeding the greater goal? So these are things like spacesuits, commercial lunar payload service missions, and also some propulsion technology that will help us. Developing exploration technologies on the International Space Station. So these fine people that are aboard there are doing experiments and research in science and technology that'll help us. Spacesuit development, which we need. We've had a venerable couple of spacesuits, the Orlan in Russia and the EMU here in the United States, but neither of those is suited for working on the surface, so that needs to be done. And finally, we'll address some crew issues like space traffic management and space situational awareness. What I'd like to do now is ask all of you to join me in a moment of silence to remember the fallen astronauts and cosmonauts who have passed since our last meeting last September in Minsk. Thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to reintroduce William Harris, the CEO of Space Center Houston, for the next speaker.
Thank you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce an extraordinary leader who passionately leads the city of Houston as our 62nd mayor. Sylvester Turner has a distinguished career, including 27 years serving as a state representative in the Texas legislature, a reputation as a renowned attorney in private practice, a law school adjunct professor, and lecturer. Please join me in welcoming Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner.
Let me thank William, and let me take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you to the city of Houston, to Mr. Alegria, the board chair, and certainly to Bobby Dunbar, the Congress chair, and to all of you. And I see John Sharp, the chancellor of A&M, here today, and Dr. Ochoa. Welcome back to the city of Houston. And let me just say to you, I am told that this is the largest convening group of astronauts and cosmonauts in the entire 32-year history of this Congress. And so it is a delight for all of you to be here in the city of Houston. And then I know that there are representatives of about 38 different countries that are a part of this Congress, and we're delighted to have you. Welcome to the most diverse city in the United States of America. 1 of 4 Houstonians is foreign born. People come from all over, and we are so proud of that. And then this is your first time in the city of Houston. I know you have been to Washington, D.C. and Salt Lake City and to Seattle, but welcome to the best city in the country. So I want to welcome you here. Now, while you're here, if you run into anybody that's not friendly and warm and hospitable, that person is from New York and not from the city of Houston. No, I love New Yorkers, but we are just honored to have you. And then you're here for the 32nd Annual Association of Space Explorers Plenary Congress, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first man landing on the moon. And I can recall back in 1962, on the campus of Rice University, President John F. Kennedy made his famous quote, and I want to repeat it because it's quite fitting even today, that this country was conquered by those who move forward, and so will space. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the right things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And the growth of our science and education will be enriched by new knowledge of our universe and the environment. Those words that were spoken back in 1962 by President Kennedy still apply today. And it's a simple expression of the fact that you would not be here unless you and those who work with you had dreamed big and then accomplished your dreams. And in this city, we believe if you dream big, you can achieve great things. I often say that Houston is a place where dreams come true, and that remains the case today. We draw much of that spirit from the accomplishments of the Johnson Space Center and Space Center Houston. And these institutions remain crucial to the economic and cultural life of our city, and they will be that way for decades to come. The fact that this time you celebrate one of humankind's greatest achievements, putting men and women from the United States on the moon, is a reminder of how our city's identity is wrapped around space exploration. And quite frankly, the focus for us now in the city of Houston, startups, technology, innovation, and the Johnson Space Center is leading the way. And since our city was the first word spoken on the moon, we are working successfully to make sure we continue to be on the tip of people's tongues when it comes to innovation in space exploration, energy, medicine, and digital startups. And the reality is that as we build out this ecosystem, they are all very much interrelated and support one another. I am thankful that you are going to help us with our future, and part of your annual Congress includes a community day where you share your legendary stories and your experience, expertise with students and other members of the Houston area. In this, you are helping all of us to raise a city of dreamers and doers. Someone once said that children are messages that we send into the future to a world we ourselves may never see. The reality is that what our children see on earth today, in due time, through your efforts, your expertise, your vision, they will see those things in space itself. We have come a long way. We still have a long way to go, but the very fact that you are here in such large numbers means that we are making tremendous progress. Welcome to the city of Houston. I hope you have an opportunity to kind of go beyond just the Space Center, because this is a great city, warm hearts, big doers, big dreamers, and we simply believe that anything can be accomplished when we work together. And if you have any doubt, the Astros won last night at midnight, which is an indication. One down, 3 to go. And I hope that if you're not an Astro fan, before you leave here, you will be one. Welcome to the city of Houston.
Thank you, Mayor Turner, for that warm welcome, Ghost Rose. So we are extraordinarily grateful to all of our sponsors, but especially to the presenting sponsor, the Texas A&M University System. And to introduce its chancellor, I'd like to invite back up to the stage Texas A&M University professor, Dr. Bonnie Dunbar.
Well, thank you. It's my great pleasure to introduce our Chancellor, John Sharp, not just a man with vision himself and stepped up to help sponsor this conference, although I hope I still have my position. He told me it was always hard to follow the mayor, so forgive me for that. Thank you, Mayor. Great speech. It takes vision, and John Sharp is one of those people of vision to lead a university system like the Texas A&M University System. He was appointed to our Board of Regents on September 6, 2011. And in 2017, just 2 years ago, Governor Greg Abbott named him the commissioner of the Governor's Commission to Rebuild Texas, which is dedicated to rebuilding critical infrastructure along the Gulf Coast, particularly that which was affected by Hurricane Harvey. He brings with him more than 3 decades of public service. He's been elected to office, he has been comptroller, but more importantly I think is what he's done for the Texas A&M University System since he became chancellor in rebuilding our infrastructure there, new labs, new buildings, and actually converting the Ryan Airfield into an industrial center, the Rellis Center, and bringing new industry there as well. So I won't take long, but I'd like you to help me give a warm welcome to the Chancellor of the Texas A&M University System, Chancellor John Sharp.
So when Bonnie asked me to speak here, I asked her, I said, what do you want me to speak about? And she said, I want you to speak about 5 minutes. So I get that. It is an axiom in Texas that you do not want to follow Sylvester Turner in a speech. I mean, the guy, I've seen preachers leave the stage after he finishes speaking. Following Sylvester, I hate to say this, but this is what people say privately. Following Sylvester is like being the 7th husband of Elizabeth Taylor on a honeymoon. I mean, You know what to do, you're just not sure you can make it as exciting as Sylvester does. One of the things that I have to share this one story with you. No matter what you do at a university, it is the students that will always bring you back home and make sure you understand that you ain't much punkin', right? And I want to tell you a story that happened to me a week ago. So I am going to speak to the distinguished professors. You are not late when you're a chancellor and you go to speak to the distinguished professors. But I am late, and I fortunately have a pass called a God pass that lets me park anywhere on campus that I want. And so I was late, and so I parked in the middle of the street. I ran out of my car, I ran into Rudder Tower to give my speech, and I came back out. And when I came back out, somebody operating a backhoe had broken a gas line. And they put this yellow tape all around the affected area. In the middle of that yellow tape was my vehicle. And so, not wanting to be pushy and also not wanting to start it and blow myself up, I sat on the corner of the steps of the Memorial Student Center and waited. A student from Brownwood, Texas comes and he sits next to me. He doesn't know or care who the Chancellor of Texas A&M is. And he's telling me he's from Brownwood, he's a biomedical science major and all the wonderful things he's going to do. And he asked me where my hometown was, and we were chit-chatting and everything. And then after about 5 minutes, he stopped, and I looked at him, and he was looking at my truck. And after a couple of minutes, he poked me like that, and he said, "How'd you like to be the dumbass that parked his truck right here?" And I thought to myself, this is what brings it all home, right? But I wanted to spend a few minutes, if I could, to just talk a little bit about Texas A&M University and its involvement with what you do. Here we are with the most famous people, famous heroes on Earth. I mean, everyone remembers the cosmonauts, the taikonauts, the astronauts, no matter what country they're in. I remember when I was 7 years old, and my dad took me out into the yard and to look at Sputnik. We didn't know what that was, but it was really hard to believe that you could see something the size of a basketball that was up there. And I was too young to be scared like all the grown-ups were at that particular time. And you only have 3 or 4 memories of where you were, the Kennedy assassination, a few things like that. But most of mine have to do with space. It's that, and in July of 1969, I had just finished my freshman year at A&M. I was driving a maize combine as my summer job, and the farmer comes out. I'd forgotten what was happening that day because my dad made me work 2 jobs to pay for school. And the farmer comes out and he said, "They say they're going to put a man on the moon in about 15 minutes. You might want to come watch this." And so I got off of the combine, I went in there and watched it. And after Neil Armstrong made his journey onto the moon, this guy said, "Okay, go back in the fields, you know this didn't happen." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Oh yeah, that's in Arizona somewhere." And that guy died absolutely sure that was not true, that happened. But for those of us that were youngsters at the time these things were going on, all of you were the heroes for all of us. If I could, I want to take a few minutes and just tell you a few things that we do at Texas A&M University that have to do with y'all. We have 4 astronauts that teach at Texas A&M University, which is the largest number of astronauts to teach at any university in the country. Astronauts like Mike Fossum and Bonnie Dunbar. I want to say a few things about some of the different parts of the space program. We work on everything from figuring out how to live on Mars to training the next generation of astronauts for Space Center directors, supplying you with tortillas that come up handy during the weightless mealtime. Some of you may not know that the food that you eat at the space station is actually prepared and manufactured on our campus, and you seem to be really into tortillas, and so we make a lot of those for you. At Texas A&M, our history with Legends of the United States program began before NASA was ever created, back in 1952. there was a 22-year-old second lieutenant in the Air Force named Buzz Aldrin. And he went through advanced pilot training and got his wings on what is now the Rellis campus of the Texas A&M system, about 5 miles from Texas A&M. Back then it was called the Bryan Air Force Base. And by the way, it's also about to become home to the new Army Futures Command Research Operations Center and Proving Grounds. All should note that Gus Grissom got his wings there. He was a young instructor pilot there after the Korean War as well. And fast forward to the days of the Apollo mission, one of the most well-known Aggies to be involved in the space program was making a name for himself. Jerry Griffin, class of 1956, worked as an Apollo flight director in 1968. He was in the mission control room as Apollo 11 descended to the moon. He later served as the lead flight director on Apollos 12, 15, and 17. He was scheduled to serve as Apollo 13's lunar landing control lead, but instead he led one of the flight control teams working to bring the astronauts back to Earth after that explosion in April of 1970. So he's a truly trusted part of the leadership of NASA. He became director of Houston's Johnson Space Center in 1982. Something that I think is pretty telling about people's admiration for what you do is the fact that Jerry's Aggie ring has been to the moon. So it's now on display at the Zachary Engineering Center, which is the largest engineering school in any university in the country, and the single most popular place visited by tourists coming to Texas A&M is to go to that center to see Jerry Griffin's ring because it went to the moon. If I'm talking about Texas A&M and space, you know I have to mention Aaron Cohen. Aaron, who died in 2010, was a true space flight pioneer. He was a class of 52, spent 33 years at NASA. He'd risen to become director of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, and he was a steady, comforting, and strong force at Johnson as NASA recovered from the Challenger tragedy. Over the years, Aaron's superiors showered him with awards. He was twice given the presidential rank of Distinguished Executive. He was awarded NASA's highest honor, the Distinguished Service Medal, on 3 different occasions. The names of Buzz, Gus, Jerry, and Aaron are, of course, always mentioned with the highest reverence and respect in every corner of our campus. But we at Texas A&M currently can boast about some truly impressive people with the most intimate ties to the space program. Right now, today at Texas A&M, as I mentioned, we have 4 astronauts on the payroll. We have also Nancy Curie-Gregg, who served as a mission specialist in 4 space shuttle missions. She's accrued 1,000 hours in space. She's now teaching there. Bonnie, of course, who flew on 5 shuttle missions between 1985 and 1998. She spent more than 50 days in space. She teaches there. We also have Greg Chamatov. He was an engineer and former astronaut. He's been to space twice, spending 6 months aboard the International Space Station. He's now teaching. And then there's Mike Fossum. Mike's an Aggie, logged 194 days in space. In 2017, became the head of Texas A&M Galveston campus. While Mike is the only Aggie undergraduate to become an astronaut, we have a couple of astronauts with graduate degrees, William Pales and Steve Swanson. I also should mention Holly Riddings, class of 96, who in 2018 became the first woman to serve as chief flight director in NASA's history, and Mark Wayland, a Texas A&M graduate who currently serves as director of NASA's Medical Policy and Ethics Division. We work on several things. Time does not allow for much of it, but the smart suit is one of the things we work on. It's a spacesuit designed by engineering professor Dr. Ana Diaz-Ortiz. It is designed for planetary exploration of the moon and Mars. The suit has stretchable, self-heating skin that protects the astronaut and also collects data. I'm proud to say that it recently was selected for a NASA Innovative Advanced Concept Phase 1 grant. Dr. Zizin Song is working on a collaborative project with Johnson Space Center to develop mapping algorithms for a robonaut or robo-astronaut. The idea is to allow the robonaut make better use of the crew's time and to perform tasks that might be too dangerous for humans. Just a little sci-fi sounding, but with his sustaining life research, Engineering professor Dr. Robert Skelton is addressing ways to live in space for long periods. He's studying gravity, radiation protection, agricultural space for food productions, and a lot of other things. And there are others at A&M who are thinking about colonization of the moon and Mars. Some people are developing rovers to cruise across the surface. Other scientists are trying to figure out how to recover hydrogen for fuel and oxygen to breathe from the frozen seas of the South Pole of the moon. Dr. John Junkins, who runs something called a Genius Corps at A&M. It's actually called the Hagler Institute for Advanced Studies, where people from all over the world come and spend a year at A&M. He started at NASA Marshall, worked on Saturn rockets, worked on the Apollo program, worked on a dozen flights of Delta rocket launches in the late 60s, and he's currently working on a collaboration between A&M and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to make spacecraft able to operate with less human supervision. It's obviously very important for exploring space. John told me once that the work involves autonomous spacecraft that could be deployed for missions of 12 or more years, something that some humans may want not to be away from home for that period of time. So as I mentioned, we make your food on campus. If you have any complaints about that, give me or Bonnie a call and we'll ship Whataburgers to you if what we make is not good. But just a few words about A&M that you may not know. Texas A&M University is the largest research university by dollar volume, almost $1 billion in the entire southwestern United States. You have to go to the East Coast or the West Coast to find a larger research university. Much of it is dedicated to what you do. Our engineering school is the largest in the United States of America and all consistently ranked in the top 5. Our Army Futures Command, we just broke ground yesterday. The research for the future weapon systems, including hypersonics, directed energy, lasers, things like that, are all going to be done on the new campus that we have. And we are really pleased. Some of the things that happened in just the last year, Los Alamos National Lab, for instance, is now under the supervision of Texas A&M along with the Cal system, and we took control of that a year ago, October, and several things like that. Suffice it to say that what you do, the students that walk our campus, you have the coolest job description on planet Earth to all of those kids, because what you do is what they dream of and what all of us dream of. And so we can't thank you enough for what you have meant to all of the people of the world. It is amazing how between the different nations we tend to fight and argue and fear each other, and then you look in space and you're best friends and you wonder, why can't that happen here? Thank you for everything that you mean to the world. Thank you.
How about just join me with one more round of applause for Texas A&M and all the other sponsors that have made this possible. And I think I speak for many of us who will take you up on that Whataburger offer, by the way. So now it's my pleasure to introduce a video that I think you'll find inspirational. It's starring some present and some future members of the Association of Space Explorers, courtesy of NASA.
50 years ago, we went to the moon. We called it Apollo.
What many people don't know is that Apollo had a twin.
She was a woman named Artemis, goddess of the moon.
We are returning to the moon
as a new generation of explorers.
This time to stay.
And to prepare to achieve humanity's next giant leap of sending the first human missions to Mars.
We believe our course will redefine what is possible.
That we will discover life-saving,
earth-changing science.
And that the challenges ahead will inspire generations.
This is our manifest.
For all who wondered if we could return.
For all who dreamed of pressing beyond.
This is your calling.
We go for all of America.
We go. We go as the Artemis generation.
We go.
All right, I have exactly 2 more sentences to say. The first one is that after the second one, I'd like everybody to remain seated while we take a photo. And the second one is that I hereby declare the 32nd Interplanetary Congress of the Association of Space Explorers, let me say that again. The 32nd Planetary Congress of the Association of Space Explorers is now open. Thank you. Stay seated.